Alright, good morning guys. Today I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to play a game of 15-minute chess. Instead, actually, I'm going to do a couple things. The first thing is I'm going to let you know what I've been up to, and I'm going to, tell you about something that I've been thinking about. Something that's happened to me in my chess world personally that's gotten me thinking. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a game, and it's got a lot of different themes, but I want to emphasize the difference between online chess and long over-the-board chess, or I guess maybe even long online chess, even though that many people don't play it. And then finally, I want to give you a theory on, again, back to ratings, about how you might actually have a higher rating than you think. Simply because of the people you're playing. So to begin with, let's go back to my first little bullet point before I show you this game that I played. Over the last 9 games, 2 tournaments, have gone from 1480 something to 1680 something. 200-point increase. Now I am provisional, to be fair. I'm at P21 or something like that right now, so I got a little bonus in there. But still, the point is like my last event, I had a performance rating of 1922, and that's pretty insane if 1488 is your supplemental rating. And I last year was studying every day. I was playing in an area where there wasn't a whole lot of tournament chess. Like maybe we'd go once every few months to a tournament. Actually, that might even be overdoing it. Maybe once a year. It wasn't that common. There were more rated tournaments. Oh, excuse me, that's my phone. There are more unrated tournaments than there were rated tournaments. So I played a lot of casual chess, and I was playing against these guys that were rated around 1600 or below. And when I was playing these guys at 1600, I mean, we'd have, really good fights. I probably, on the long run, lost more than I won to these guys. So, big shout out to Hanging Pawns and the Marysville Chess Club. I don't know that anyone else is watching this. It's probably just you guys, but whatever. You guys helped me stay in the game and enjoy chess in a lighter way. I was taking it too seriously and was becoming frustrated, so becoming a part of those 2 clubs really helped my chess progression. However, as I was studying, I wasn't performing better to an extent, like slightly better, but not a whole lot better than these 1600 guys that I was playing against. 1600, 1650. I think their ratings are a little deflated for their strength, but still. I didn't feel, even though I was studying a whole bunch, and I'm sure that a lot of you have experienced this, that I was improving at a really fast level for the amount of studying that I was doing. So I was doing at least 3 hours of chess study every day, and I, looked everywhere to find out what is the best and most efficient way to study. So I was working on tactics, I was working on pattern recognition, I was, going over master games, etc. I mean, just ad nauseum, and I wasn't improving that much. Then I moved to a different area, and I got a job, and so my overall chess studying diminished a significant amount. I went from studying maybe 3 hours a day to maybe studying 1 if I was lucky. I mean, really, really, really little study. But in this area, there's a lot more tournament chess. So although my ability to play casual chess and to study has gone down, the amount of the over-the-board rated events in this area is just heavily multiplied when you compare the last area I was in. And so naturally, I wanted to play more because, I had a provisional over-the-board rating, and I kind of wanted to see what strength I was at. Now, to be fair, I'm saying that I had a provisional rating, but I mean, it had been hovering around 1450 at every tournament that I played at. So it's I'm not trying to say that rating wasn't a real reflection of what strength I was at. But then I go play in these two tournaments after not studying for weeks. At least a month actually, now that I think about it. And, my rating jumps up 200 points, and I'm playing significantly well. So something that maybe I want to mention to you is, I'm going to make an analogy, is maybe chess study is kind of like, let's compare weightlifting to running a 5K. If you lift weights, like aesthetically, there's a difference almost immediately. Like it takes a matter of days before you can start lifting heavier weights to the muscle that you trained initially. Meanwhile, when it comes to running and like lowering your time on a 5K, if you go run a 5K 3 times a week, which is a significant amount, you probably won't notice, a really big increase, or actually, excuse me, that's wrong, a decrease on your timing or an increase on your efficiency in running until like a week or two later. So there's like a latency period before your running ability, your training kicks in and actually improves your ability to run. And I think that chess might be similar, even though you're looking at, knowledge and patterns and ideas. So although I was studying all of these things, it doesn't necessarily mean that I was applying them to my games. So the fact that I took some time off might have given me a long enough time to kind of assimilate all of that information and start applying it in my own games. And that's kind of like my first theory as to why I, came to a different place, didn't study, my study went down, and then my performance went up, which was surprising. So maybe something to take home is when you have a big month coming up. Like for me, I have 3 different tournaments coming up, 13 games in September. And so I know that during September, I'm not going to be studying very much at all. I might lightly go over my games for like opening theory, and that's probably going to be it. Just because I don't want to, basically run a 5K the day before I have to go to a race that's a 5K, right? That doesn't make sense. So something to think about maybe is to give yourself a little breather when it comes to chess, to allow all that information to assimilate, because it doesn't happen immediately before you go play in your big events that you really want to perform in. Now the second thing that, and this leads into the game, the second thing that might really improve your performance is when you realize that online chess, which is almost always quick chess, because not even I love slow chess, want to play slow chess in front of my computer. It's just like, sometimes, I used to do it out of necessity, because that's like the only way I'd really get slow chess. I'm talking like 45-45 league on ICC and stuff like that. But not many people other than that league, and that was only like 1 game a week, would be willing to accept your 45-45 game. And even if they did, they wouldn't play you like 45-45 style. They'd play you like it was a blitz game and get pissed at you when you were taking your time, and then, like adjourn the game. It was just rare for you to find someone who actually wanted to play a slow game. But you have to understand they're completely different animals. And although there are a lot of different themes in this game, and I'm going to go over a lot of stuff, it's still, I think a cool game to say, like you can't always play moves that just look good in slow chess. You really need that concrete analysis to back the moves that look good to you. You can't simply use your intuition. To give you some context to this game, this was the 3rd game out of 4 in a tournament that I was playing. I got paired as white against I guess not the highest rated player I've ever played before, but paired against someone whose live rating was in the 1830s, I think, and their supplement rating was 1800 even. So a pretty strong opponent. He's Class A. Meanwhile, my supplement rating is 1488, but I had already played in a tournament previously, and my rating had jumped up a good bit, so my live rating was 1557. However, on the score sheet, I was 1488. So I'm sure this guy was thinking, great, round 3, this is going to be an easy win. I mean, everyone else in the tournament was rated like the next guy above me was like rated 1560, and his live rating was 1650. The guy, above him was like 1750. The guy above him was in 1800, and then everyone else was like 1800 and above, all the way up to 2150. So it's like everyone was super high rated in this event. And my first game I lost to a 1930, even though it was a really good game. Second game I beat a 1750. Third game is this game. So I'm playing the white pieces, he's playing the black pieces. Let's jump into it. E4, D6, Knight F6, Knight C3. I have a buddy that plays the delayed Hanham variation, or the delayed Philidor, I think it's called the Hanham, where he plays like Knight to D7 and E5 and stuff. And against that, you know, I played it. I started to play, you know, like F3 preparing G4 and H4, which is like really wild, and I actually played this against him before without knowing like the theory very much, just the idea, and he crushed me. So thanks for that, Roy. Anyway, so but it's really scary for both sides when done properly, just because white's got this pawn storm coming like right off the bat. But he didn't play that. He played the Pierce defense, which is much more common than the Philidor. It's lost a little bit of attention. I'm not saying that it's bad. Again, my friend Roy would be mad at me if I said it was bad. It's just not played as often. You know, if you pull it up on a database, you're not going to find it as often. So I love playing with space, so I go ahead and play F4, the Austrian. Bishop G7, and Knight F3, which is all normal. Now he plays Bishop to G4, and that's not a normal move. And I didn't know that at the time. I am not super familiar with the theory behind the Pierce. I played it for a little while when I was a horrible player and quit just because, again, I like space, so I'm not a huge fan of hyper-modern openings unless they get me a lot of space, and the Pierce didn't really do that for me. I mean, I think C5 is kind of like the main idea. I mean, it's more obnoxious than Bishop takes G4 just because it's already like working on this diagonal. But he goes Bishop to G4, and I missed the idea. But I play something that's actually okay. I play Bishop to C4. And now it looks like it'd be bad because he, you know, is gonna, and I noticed this, it looks like he's got the center fork trick. But I also noticed that if he goes for this now, I actually reply with Bishop takes F7 check, followed by Knight takes, and now he has to play like either Queen to C7 or to D7, I think, or C8 to D or D7 to guard this because I'm threatening to check again and uncover an attack against this. So it's important that he defends it. So he can't actually go for it yet, and he castles, and, you know, I was at this point, and I was like, well, you know, I guess I'm just going to allow him to play the center fork trick, just because I didn't see any other ways out of it. But really the correct idea here is, I guess if you want to pause your video, and I'll give you, you know, like 3 seconds to see if you can find it, go ahead and do that. Okay, time's up. The correct idea here is actually H3. Obviously, the bishop can't retreat. It gets trapped. So it takes, and you capture with the queen, and now you've got H3, and I believe this is so that you can play G4, and the queen is already kind of on the king side, supporting these pawns moving forward. So that's kind of the idea. And now, of course, the center fork trick obviously doesn't work, because both the queen, and the bishop are guarding the square, so just the queen sending the d pawn forward isn't enough. So we'd just be losing a piece there. Instead, I played bishop to e3, and I kind of had like psychological intent behind this. I thought the bishop was going to go there eventually, but the other like plausible move is castling. And when you play bishop to e3 instead of castling here, it's kind of unsettling, at least for me. When you've already committed your king and your opponent is playing moves to say like, hey, I'm not really going to commit my king yet, it can be kind of daunting. You know, it's like, well, do I go ahead and like preemptively start a pawn storm? Because that could end up becoming a weakness if I end up castling kingside anyway, right? So it can be frustrating to play. Fortunately for him, though, he's already got a few moves planned out for him with the center fork trick, which now works. Now, the correct move, obviously, is not to take, right? Because after queen takes, I'd have to play something like this, which is really ugly. I mean, it's getting by, but he's just got a monstrous amount of pressure on that square, on f3, so that's not the way to go. The correct move is bishop to d3. And I actually, the reason why I was okay with playing this, and this retains the bishop pair as well, is because now I'm hitting on b7, and he's got to do something about that. And I was hoping that he'd play knight to c6. And it's not that knight to c6 is a horrible move. I would not play d5 and just unleash this monster. The point is, if he plays knight to c6, his c5 pawn is blocked. It's kind of like in the Queen's Gambit Declined. They often say, if you're playing black, play knight on b to d7, not knight to c6, because your main breaking move is going to be c5. And that's also the case here. Even though, you know, black is somewhat equalized, even though I probably still have constituted a small advantage at this point because of my space in the center and his e-pawn isn't, you know, like, anywhere yet. It still suffices to say that he's going to have to break at my center, even if it is weaker. But at the same time, in this position, and he didn't play knight to c6 because he's a good player, he played the best move, he played c6. And in this position, though, it's like, the whole point here is I get a big center, he wants to chip away at it, and he's kind of done that. So even though, like, material is equal, I kind of feel like I've come out of the opening battle lost because he's accomplished his goals. So, I play queen to d2. Again, this is kind of quote-unquote threatening to go to the queen side or the king side. And it's nice having the bishop on e4 because it's covering f3 in the event that he takes it. And that's exactly what I should do right now. But actually, I was thinking, I could just go ahead and take with the g-pawn. And that's just an error. It's something that, you know, I thought that having, and it's saying, well, now I'm going queenside now. And it's something that I thought that even though these pawns are double isolated, if I go queenside, you know, these pawns being weak really aren't going to be a big deal because it's going to be the type of position where he's throwing his pawns at me, I'm throwing, you know, everything I have at him. You know, maybe I double on the g file. Having an open file is probably going to be beneficial. That's kind of part of the point of throwing these pawns at your opponent's king, is to open files for you to attack him with. Also to remove some of the pawns that guard him. So I was like, well, this might actually be good. The problem is, although in theory it's good, his next move, which is again the correct move, another pawn move, e6, is it slams the door shut on f5, right? And because I can't play f5, I can't play bishop to h6, which is something that I really want to do in order to trade off this bishop. Now, if the pawn were still, like, you know, somewhere here, I could kind of, like, work on, or hell, even if it were here, I could, you know, just go ahead and play bishop to h6. So it's, you know, the g-pawn having come here, you know, and instead of coming here and then, you know, there perhaps, and allowing me to play here, opening up this bishop to h6 idea has just been completely shut down. So, I mean, at this point, I'd say that, you know, black is probably, you know, if not an advantage, equal. I play c3 just to kind of bolster this pawn structure against g7. It's not like it's, you know, quote-unquote necessary. Also, take note, f5 doesn't work here. Like, hold on, let me waste a move. Actually, even better, the computer actually suggests, I think, to go ahead and queenside castle, because f5 doesn't work here, because after bishop to d3, although this pawn is hanging, obviously it's not hanging for long. Like, even this doesn't work, because now this is hanging, and now I've got the file, so I don't know, and, you know, this is attacking it twice, so it doesn't work. But I play c3 now anyway, and I guess I should have gone ahead and queenside castled and tried to make something out of my attack more quickly. So that's kind of like the big mistake I made, other than allowing him to do the center fork trick. Even though I wouldn't even say that's a mistake, that's just kind of an inaccuracy. But this play, taking it with the g-pawn, is just a flat mistake. I mean, again, it's like now, you know, it's like it puts a little bit of onus, even though most of the times these positions that go opposite side castles end in mate one way or the other. You know, I figured this is like something that he would exploit in an endgame. But it's already frustrating me because he played e6. So it's already something that's bad for me. So he plays knight to d7, he's getting defelt. Oh no, I play h4 first, that's right. And that's actually really important. Because if I had stalled any longer, he could play queen to h4 check. And I guess queenside castling is probably roughly equal here. But if he goes queen to h4, then I might not be able to get h4 in myself, right? You know, he'd be blockading the pawn effectively. I mean, and there are ways for me to get, you know, rid of him and whatnot, but still, it's a lot easier for me to just go ahead and play h4 now so that I can kind of maintain, you know, maybe hopefully one day this pawn gets out of my way and you know, I trade off this dark square bishop, which is something that I think is in these types of positions is just generally serendipitous for white. You know, you just kind of want to get rid of this bishop so that these squares become weak and it increases your attacking chances. So he plays h5, which is actually the right move. You know, it's not really weakening. It's a good idea. It's better to play h5 than to allow me to play h5. So now I just queenside castle. And knight to f6. This is the first time that he actually shows any sign of inaccuracy. I wouldn't say this is a mistake. I would say it's inaccurate because it's got the wrong idea. The correct idea is to come to b6. I mean, he's still got access to d5 if he wants it, but he's rerouting his knight to the to the queen side where my king is, and he needs to be attacking there. I mean, him landing on c4 would be extremely obnoxious for me. It's like I'm giving up my dark square bishop, and I kind of need my dark square bishop if I'm going to have a successful attack against this king, because I want to get rid of his with mine. So this is kind of the first time that he showed a little bit of, you know, not armor, but a little bit of skin. You know, it's like he's human. The 1800, you know, it can bleed, but even though I haven't really cut him yet. So I just bring a rook to the g file, and then bam, double question mark. Huge blunder strategically. And this is the first moment where I think speed chess is kind of to blame. I don't know if that my opponent plays a lot of speed chess. I don't know him very well. Really courteous guy when I played him, really nice guy. It was a complete and total pleasure to play him, and etc. But double question mark here, because this is just awful. This move is terrible in so many ways. I can't even begin to explain. Taking on e4, although it does get rid of the bishop pair for me, allows me to recapture with the f pawn. First of all, he's trading a piece that could come to d5 and maybe help in an attack for a piece that's kind of crappy, to be honest with you. And second of all, it allows my g-pawn to migrate to e4 and become the missing e-pawn. So now not only do I have a massive center, I have a pawn on e4, and I've got the open g-file. So it like justified me playing g takes f3. So it lets me have my cake and eat it too. You know, so it's, you know, now all of a sudden my attack is kind of in full force. If you can think of like a Sicilian Yugoslav, where's his attack? It's nowhere. I'm already threatening f5, right? Because the e-pawn is now helping me thrust it forward. And he plays queen to d7 to try to reconcile his position. But this isn't good either. And it's like, because he blundered, he has to make another bad move, even though I don't think this is necessarily inaccurate. Just because, you know, he has to play something to, you know, try to hold on. But realistically, he wants his queen on d8 because he wants to be able to play like a5, a4, and like queen a5, or to, after moving the b pawn to b6, and attack on my side of the board. So playing queen to d7 just shows that, you know, he's kind of gotten himself into this plan of just defending. You know, it's like all he's doing now is defending. And that's like going to a boxing match with the idea of only dodging punches. It's like, how are you gonna win? Like, yeah, maybe the other guy tires out and just like by attrition you end up drawing or tying him, but how are you gonna win if you're not fighting? So I don't know, that move, I mean, was just a huge surprise to me. But the game gets even more interesting. I played rook to g5. The point behind this is to control the c5 square. I don't want him playing c5 and breaking up my center. I allowed him to break up my center once. I'll be damned if I let him do it again. But of course I had to see the immediate response. Bishop to h6, saying, excuse yourself. And again, I'd like to pause the video here and say, well, what would you play? And then, you know, of course I'll show you what I played. Okay, well, I hope I gave you enough time. If not, then, you know, we're continuing on. The correct idea here is to play rook to g3. Now if he goes bishop to g7, you can double your rooks, and it's basically for free. Like, you basically doubled your rooks for nothing, if you look. Because now it's his move, and nothing about his position has changed. He just shuffled his bishop from h6 to g7. And now, you know, I've got doubled rooks and I'm prepared to play f5 and everything looks good. On the other hand, if he doesn't bring his bishop back, I can play f5 and now force the exchange of this dark square bishop. So that's kind of the best idea. However, I played rook on h to g1, and while I was looking at this game and while I played it, I thought this was an okay move. I thought it was fine, just sacrificing the exchange. But now, like, that I look at it, and I've looked at it, you know, over and over and analyzed, and the computer hates me for this move because I'm giving up material. But, you know, I'll get to that in a second. This is a move that I played relatively quickly. It's an idea that I had coming for, like, a little while as soon as I occupied the G file. But it's something that I really need to give a long think to, because not that I'm, like, giving up material, but my opponent's plan was dubious. His plan was, I'm going to sit here and defend. That's what I'm going to do. Maybe he was doing it because I'm only rated 1488 at the time. You know, I'm just going to hold tight and defend, and eventually this guy's going to, like, make a mistake, and I'm just going to pick up, like, a random tactical win. Right? So I'm just going to defend. And that's wrong, right? But now I've given him a material advantage. So now it gives him a reason to defend, because if he can just defend out into an endgame, he'll be winning simply on a material advantage. So it's really important now that I'm checkmating this guy, or I'm converting into some kind of advantage, and material's coming off the board, so it gives me less of a chance to do so. So it puts a really big onus on me to make sure that my attack breaks through. Right? I mean, like, having the dark square bishop gone, which is the reason why I did it, you know, makes all these squares really weak, and I've got my dark square bishop. I mean, I can't tell you how many tactical problems I've solved where, you know, the king has weak squares around it, doesn't have the right colored bishop to protect it, meanwhile you do. You know, it's like there are tons of them. And now I'm going to get to what I said about the computer. Is the computer is, like, screaming at me now for doing this. But A, the computer kind of favors material, and B, the computer really doesn't comprehend the concept of how easy or how difficult it is to play a position. I mean, if you look at every move from here on out, my opponent doesn't find the best move because there aren't necessarily, like, forcing moves in which the best move is obvious, right? It kind of gets more difficult for him to play. Meanwhile, my plan is easy. I'm playing f5, and I'm trying to, like, sacrifice on his king to blow the doors open and checkmate him. But it's kind of hard to, when you have less space, especially, to coordinate a good defense. So he plays king to h7, and I play f5, of course, right? You know, trying to kick the door in. He takes, I take. He plays rook to g8. His idea is he wants to take this pawn and then snap up my rook, right? That's the idea. That doesn't really work. I don't know why. I just take that pawn as soon as he captured. And he'd be in trouble. However, sorry, just get rid of these red lines. Maybe his idea was not allowing me to take, right? So maybe he like takes back with the rook or something. I'm not really sure what his idea was. But I played the not so sneaky, an extremely obvious threat, queen e2. Let's say he does nothing. I'm going to give you a second. Pause your video, calculate this line out, and see if you can find what I'm supposed to play. This should be good, for you anyway. Okay, so now I'm going to go into why he can't do nothing here, and why it's important that he covers. I have rook takes h5 check. Sorry, my computer's going to talk to us. It's just, for whatever reason, it likes saying check a lot. Takes, queen takes with check, right? And then that's just mate. So it's important to see, and that's forced. I mean, or, you know, like, if he does nothing and I take this and then he comes here, I mean, I don't know. It's still, let me use Mr. Computer here to show me the way. Yeah, it's still mate in 3. Bishop to h6 check. King to h7. What about? Oh, then just queen to e5 mate. Duh. That's what I was missing. Yeah, and then obviously here, if he goes there, then it's still mate. Checkmate. Anyway, point being, it's mate. I'm threatening mate, and so he covers this by bringing the rook to the h file. And let's just take stock of the position here, which is what I was doing. This rook has done nothing the entire game. I mean, it was begging to get some activity for this a-pawn to run, because then, you know, the rook would be perfect on a8. But the rooks are, like, in their starting positions now. Let me make sure the next move is the one that I think it is. Yeah, this move is my favorite move of the game. Now that there aren't any obvious tactics, I have to find something to do. And this is, again, my favorite move of the entire game. So pause your video again. I know that it's frustrating that I'm asking you to do this a lot. But see if you can find this move. I mean, this move is so important. And this move is the move that is, I don't know, that allows me to really get a lot of initiative and start making some strong threats. Okay, well, if you paused your video is great. Good for you. If you didn't, then, well, I suggest that you do. But the correct move here is d5. Giving scope to my bishop. Maybe to come to d4 to get on the long diagonal. Maybe to go to c5 to put pressure on f8. To kind of put weave a baiting net around my opponent's king. And again, you know how I was speaking about this rook doing nothing the entire game? Now we see another speed move, or speed chess move. Bam! Rook on a8. You know, pinning this bishop. You were creating space for your bishop, you know, and now it's not going to happen. Oh, and let me go back. Obviously, this might be a good tactic for, I don't know, some people. Probably not for anyone at my old club. They'll all see this instantly. He can't take with the queen, obviously.
Check.
Because I'll take with check and then grab this queen. So, I mean, he could take like this, but it probably wouldn't end up making a large amount of difference. But anyway, he plays here, and it's like, well, now I'm pinning your queen to your bishop. And that looks really good in speed chess, and it's just like a good idea, and I'm just going to play it. And the problem is, well, it's hard to explain. It gives me this.
Check.
Right? Rook takes h5, check. And he has to play king to g8 here, and things start to get murky.
Check.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a really crazy position. It's like, because all of his pawns around his king, they're gone, I have really good attacking chances. The problem is his pieces spring to life now that there are no pawns hindering them. So it becomes a crazy game. I'm not really sure who's winning here. It might even be even, as odd as that is. So that's really his only hope. But he does something that completely shocks me. He plays g takes h5. And I literally, when he played it, I fell out of my chair. Almost. Just because I'm like, this is an 1800. Like, how can he play... This is a double question mark. He played 2 double question marks this past game. I don't know. At this moment in the game, after I played rook takes h5, I was just screaming in my head, play g takes h5, play g takes h5, and I think I just willed him into making this mistake. I'm like, please, I've never beaten anyone over 1800, you know, anywhere near that. You know, it's like, let this be my first scalp, make it easy for me, don't make me, like, you know, have to really grind this out, just make it easy, and he did.
Check.
Queen takes h5, king to g8,
check.
Queen to g5 check, and then the important move that I had to see at rook takes h5 on move 25, f6, and this just seals the game. Note that the rook coming to e8 is now actually really obnoxious for the king, because he can't run there, right? So now he's just trapped. So the rook that had nothing but good intent, he didn't calculate out what would happen if I played rook takes h5. Now notice if he had played king to g8, he would have been perfectly fine. And he plays rook to h7, which is the best defense. Of course, this gets mated in 2, but of course prettier and cheekier, and what I would have totally played was this. But he plays the best defense in terms of what holds on the longest. But now I have bishop to c5 check, and again, this is why that d5 move really shined, right? I had, when I played d5, ideas of running the pawn to f6 and making a mating net, and I'll show you in a minute what I was thinking about, just because until he played rook on a to e8, what I was thinking about wasn't working. And he resigned here, and I won in 29 moves against an 1800, but just to give you like a sample line, queen blocks,
check.
Pawn takes, rook takes,
Check.
queen takes, king to g7, bishop comes
Check.
back and checks. Obviously if he comes up here,
Checkmate.
that's checkmate, and if he comes down, or to the square. You know, it doesn't matter. He just gets mated on g5, and this pawn is just in a very convenient position, and his pawn and rook are also in a convenient position. So that's the end of the game. I won. I was really happy, and part of the reason why I'm showing this is, I guess, to like celebrate with you guys and to send this video to my friends to let them kind of see the game, because they heard that I beat a Class A player, and they're like, you know, you have to send us the PGN. And I didn't send the PGN, and I wanted to kind of send them this and let them see this video, just so they could kind of hear my live annotations, because I wanted to annotate the game, and I didn't want to do it all on paper, because I was probably going to end up writing a book. Like, a transcript of this video would probably be pretty large. But I think the reason why he took this is for, like, psychological reasons. He was already ahead a little bit of material, so he knew that if he ended up winning this rook, but was able to, like, escape mate somehow later and figure it out and calculate all of it later, you know, and I'm just a 1488, surely he can find some way out of this, then he'd be winning clearly and easily. The problem is that's just lazy and wrong. You have to calculate to the end of every forced move, that's including checks and captures. And maybe he missed f6, but the problem is, as soon as I played f6, he nodded his head and played rook to h7 as if he knew it was coming. So it's like maybe he missed bishop to c5. And he like sat there and he didn't look shocked. Maybe he's just like a stone cold kind of guy and he just doesn't get shocked. But maybe bishop to c5 is the move that he missed. But I don't understand that, because I played d5 specifically to, I mean, I wasn't playing d5 to like break at c6. I was playing d5 to give my bishop more scope. So I don't really understand what he missed and why he would go into that variation, because really it's like a clear line to mate. But if we step back, the reason why d5 is so important, and I wanted to show you this immediately, but I didn't, simply because I didn't want to spoil that last little tactic for you.
Check.
Is that this doesn't really work
Check.
just yet, right?
Check.
Because here, instead of rook to h7, which would probably also be okay, he can play rook to g8, right? And I'm kind of flustered as to what to do here, because after check, he just goes here, right? And now if I attack his, you know, rook, which is threatening mate, and like the queen's kind of in the way, because if he does a nothing move here, that's actually mate, because the queen's kind of in the way. And again, it's funny how like bad strategy yields good tactics for your opponent. But the problem is, he just plays, or excuse me, I guess it was my move. He just plays here. And now all of a sudden, I'm just down a rook, and I have no compensation for it. And I have a crappy bishop. You know, it's like every pawn but one of mine is on the same color square as this bishop. So this would be completely losing. So anyway, I mean, even if he like started attacking now and just let me check here and pick off that rook, he'd still be up material. He'd have to mine this pawn, but he'd probably be winning. So that wasn't working. So it was really important that this square got locked down, so that the king couldn't progress. And it's funny that, you know, again, it's like a good idea, but it's bad strategy, you know? It's like these moves, the queen being on d7 and the rook being on e8, it's just bad strategy. You know, well, I guess like that's actually kind of decent strategy, but it didn't work out tactically. Like, he didn't think about the consequences clear enough. He has to always be looking at this. So yeah, that's the end of the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sure that you'll find improvements with your computer. I mean, there are inaccurate moves here and there, but I mean, we're amateurs. We're not experts, or, you know, masters, God forbid. So, I mean, hopefully one day, but not yet. So we're gonna play, you know, weak moves from time to time, some inaccurate moves from time to time. So I hope you enjoyed the game. The last topic that I want to talk to you about, and this might be more, I don't know, important to you if you only play online chess, but it's a good idea if you're playing over the board chess and you feel like you should be improving, but you're not. And maybe you've kind of like already tried giving yourself a break and that didn't really improve your rating. One, I'd say that you can get into these rating traps, and I noticed it on online chess. I was playing Seeks when I would play online chess. I'd put a Seek out, and almost always a weaker player would accept my Seek, and I'd win like 3 out of 5 games, or maybe even 4 out of 5. But that one loss against the weaker rated opponent would just equalize my rating. Like, it would cancel out the wins, right? So it's important that even if you're winning like 4 out of 5 against weaker opponents, which is like really good, and in chess sometimes you just lose, especially in fast chess. Like sometimes you just make a mistake and you can't like figure out a position. In long chess less so, but sometimes you just lose in long chess too. Sometimes it's just not your day. Maybe you should jump up to a different class rating, and you'll find that your rating goes up significantly, because now you'll probably score the same, but when you lose, you don't lose nearly as many points, so that your rating will kind of jump up to what it actually is, reflecting what your true strength is, as opposed to keeping you down to where it is currently. So that's an idea that you can ponder. And I know that a lot of people immediately are going to be like, oh, it's just a rating. Like, who cares about ratings? Like, yada, 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 yada. Well, I care about my rating, okay? Screw you. The rating, it's not something that I like to say, like, oh, I'm better than you because my rating's higher than you. I like to say my rating has gone up a certain amount of points or down a certain amount of points over time. So it can help quantify my understanding of the game and how I'm approaching it. So I like having some way to tell me that I'm improving, that all this time studying is actually paying off, or actually a lack thereof studying. We're talking about how I took a break. Is paying off, and I'm not just wasting my time. There are so many people out there that buy these like get better now, like $100 videos that do nothing, just because they want to improve, because their current, techniques and practices aren't improving them. Well, maybe they are. It's just you're getting caught in a rating trap, and you should just play in a higher class. So ratings are important. It's why they exist. Humans are competitive. I mean, that's why I enjoy chess, because it's such a competitive game. So if you're going to sit there and say that ratings aren't important, you're being a hypocrite, because your rating is probably just as important to you as it is mine to me. So anyway, that's my rant on ratings, and how maybe you can improve yours by playing a class up in your next tournament, or start playing, I guess if you're solely online, start playing in the pools, because they do auto pairing and you'll get paired against weaker and stronger players. I'm trying to think if I wanted to say anything else in this video. I'm going to upload this to my channel, and I'm going to send this to my friends. If you guys want me to play more 15-minute chess, I probably will after September. If you want, I can also show you more of my tournament games. Those are some pretty interesting games. I can show you the loss that I had. I actually played fairly well. To be fair, I was fighting for a draw, but it was totally in a reachable and drawable position, but I ended up running really low on time, and made some inaccurate moves on time, and my opponent just got the advantage from there and ended up winning. I beat a 1750 in a really interesting game, and I beat a live 1600 something in a less interesting game, because I won a piece really early in the opening because he missed a really important move. So I mean, if you guys want to see any of that, I'm not even sure if anyone's watching this channel, just let me know. And friends in Ohio, Roy, Tom, everybody, if any of you guys want to have me post more, like Con or anything like this, post more of my videos in this format, or if you just want the PGNs, just send me a text or something and let me know if this works. But again, big shout out to you guys, Bruce, Carl, everybody down there, you guys are awesome. I really enjoyed playing with you guys. My brother's actually up there, even though he doesn't play chess, but maybe you guys can convince him to play. Maybe I can send him down to the club on Saturdays. But anyway, that's going to be the end of this video. It's starting to become ranty. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the game, and you guys have a nice day. I'll catch you next time.